Consider this. What if one vulnerable moment is enough to show you whether someone is emotionally safe for you? One of the clearest indicators of a healthy relationship is how someone responds to you when you share your story from a place of vulnerability. Because when you share something painful, you are taking a risk. And in that moment, it really comes down to this. Is it safe to let you see this part of me? When someone isn't present, when they minimize, attempt to move you out of your emotions, or derail the story, it doesn't just feel disappointing. It can feel confusing and even destabilizing. And you might find yourself starting to wonder, was I too much? Did I overshare? Am I being dramatic? In today's video, I'm going to talk about Emma and Stephen, and we're going to look closely at the moment she shared something deeply personal and how one response revealed why moments like this can feel so jarring, how not to turn them into self-judgment as so many of us do, and how to use them as information instead. And I'll also unpack why I believe Stephen responded the way that he did, because often when someone can't stay with another person's pain, it says as much about their internal world as it does about the moment itself. And as Emma navigates this connection with Stephen, we'll see how he responds when things get real, and we'll explore what that response can teach her and all of us about recognizing emotional safety and choosing the kind of relationship that we truly want. Hi, I'm Dr. Pam, therapist and relationship counselor. I am so grateful that you're here. Whether you've been with me for a while or this is your first video, this is a space about understanding ourselves and our relationships in a deeper way. Also, I do know that Love is Blind is a heavily edited show, and I'm not diagnosing anyone. I am simply commenting on what we are shown so that you and I can explore relationship patterns, communication, and emotional dynamics. My goal is never to judge anyone. I don't do it in therapy. I don't do it here. I'm here to offer you insights that can help you better understand yourself and your relationships. Okay, here we go.
You know, I'm not like the type of guy that's gonna be like diving super deep into like hard-hitting questions. Like someone who can banter back and forth, it's like they are smart.
You gotta stay on your toes.
So Stephen tells us directly that he doesn't like to dive super deep into hard-hitting questions. He prefers banter. If someone says this to you on a date, this is where you want to ask questions like, what does going deep mean to you? Everyone has a different kind of relationship that feels comfortable to them. Some people thrive on depth. Some people bond through humor and lightheartedness. Neither is inherently wrong. However, when someone tells you who they are relationally, you have to pay attention so that you know what you're getting into. So what I hear is that Stephen has a preference for playfulness, but I also hear a discomfort with emotional depth. He may not want to spend much time in his own emotional world or in the emotional world of his partner. And banter, well, banter is tricky. It can be fun, it can build chemistry, it can create ease, but it can also be a way to avoid vulnerability, a way to deflect when things get uncomfortable, and at times it can cross the line, poking at insecurities underneath the guise of humor. So the question becomes, is banter a shared language of connection, or is it a protective shield? The real issue isn't that he prefers banter. It's whether he can shift when moments call for something deeper.
What are you wearing right now?
I'm wearing brown leather pants, white heels, and like a periwinkle off the shoulder long sleeve sweater.
I'm wearing a nice cream, multi-textured button down with a red crop, not even crop top. It's like low, it's shorter than most shirts, but it's not a crop.
So given that the premise of this show is for people to not judge each other on appearance, it's interesting when someone asks what the other person is wearing. I mean, the whole idea is to remove visual influence, so why go there? There's usually a reason though. Sometimes questions like that are playful. Sometimes they're about curiosity, maybe about fashion sense, but they can also signal something deeper, a pull toward curiosity about appearance, a need to anchor attraction in something visual or even discomfort standing purely in emotional connection. On a show built around emotional bonding without seeing each other, a question about appearance is something to consider. Is he struggling with not knowing what Emma looks like and leaning into that question to see if she reveals something he might find attractive? To me, given the premise of this show, that is a possible red flag.
If you were my husband, what I am nervous about in serious situations.
Like, can you not joke?
Yeah.
I know I joked about like Hanes underwear model, but I definitely think I know the appropriate time to be funny and silly. I'm really deep.
Okay. I'm still trying to figure out.
Like, what makes me tick?
Yeah.
So now we're noticing what appears like inconsistencies. First he says that he doesn't go deep, and then he says that he is deep. So that inconsistency is important to talk about with Stephen and ask him, like I said earlier, what does going deep mean to him? And also, it is important to notice how often he interrupts her, regardless of why he's doing it, whether it's nervousness, excitement, discomfort, or habit. Interruptions in the early stages of dating are really important to consider. Early dating is when people are typically on their best behavior. So if someone is already struggling to let you finish your story, your sentence, or whatever you're trying to say, that is something to pay attention to. It can signal difficulty tolerating emotional intensity, difficulty listening, or difficulty sharing space in a conversation.
I want you to be able to like get vulnerable and open up, and like, I'm not asking you to cry.
You want to see sad boy Steve? You want to see the sensitive sensei?
Okay, I'm leaving. That was such an ick.
And there it is. Humor is often used to deflect when a person is uncomfortable and has a need to move the conversation out of vulnerability.
Do you feel like you can have like hard conversations or like confront me without beating around the bush?
Yes, it'll be uncomfortable, but I am ready.
But do you feel like you could like fully open up? Because I feel like I could just like spill like tea about myself.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you could tell me about like the deepest, darkest secrets that you're hiding?
I mean, that's my hope. Like, at the end of this, I want someone that knows me for me.
I'm gonna try to come up with some stuff to like let you know and like share, like I'm not scared to share these things. We can get deep.
Okay, so again, here he says he can go deep, but he said something that really caught my attention. He referred to deep as sharing deepest, darkest secrets. And that is worth paying attention to because that appears to be his definition of deep, secrets, darkness. But vulnerability isn't the same as revealing your darkest secrets. Depth isn't about confession. It isn't about pushing someone to reveal the most painful parts of their life. Real depth is emotional presence. It's being able to sit with someone's feelings. It's sharing your internal experience in real time. Sometimes that means sharing painful parts of your story. Sometimes it doesn't, but the essence of vulnerability isn't secrecy. It's emotional honesty.
I was adopted at the age of 3.
Okay.
So when you were talking about adoption, I was like, hello, but I...
You should have spoke. I feel like that was a perfect intro to be like...
No, but it wasn't, because I don't want it to be a fun fact. My family's my family, and I don't feel the need to figure out where I came from.
Are any of your siblings adopted with you, or is it just
No, it's just me.
Emma is actually showing us what vulnerability looks like. She's sharing her story in a sincere and open way. And if you notice, Stephen is already struggling to stay present with her sharing of her story. Asking questions during someone's vulnerable sharing can actually be tricky. I mean, questions aren't inherently wrong, but the type of questions matter. Stephen is asking factual questions, clarifying details. And when someone is sharing something tender, focusing on facts can sometimes pull the conversation away from emotional experience. I mean, it can start to feel like the listener is gathering information rather than connecting with how the experience affected Emma and what she's feeling right now in her sharing. So when someone shares vulnerability, what they often need first isn't more detail from you, it's emotional presence. One could say something as simple as, I really appreciate you sharing that with me. I imagine that wasn't easy to talk about. That response can go a long way.
I feel like obviously it's gonna identify something about you that maybe you haven't like shared with me yet. I'm a little mentalist, by the way, if you can't tell.
I don't like that you try to guess.
You don't like that?
I don't like that you try to guess things about my appearance.
It's not about your appearance.
Is it not? No, I
just feel like I'm trying to get to know you fully.
And this is where bigger red flags start to show. When Stephen responds to her story by saying it's going to identify something about you and that he's a bit of a mentalist, that's where it starts to feel unsettling. She shared something vulnerable, and instead of staying with her experience, he shifts into analyzing her. He turns her story into information about her, something he can decode or guess, even about her appearance. Although he said it wasn't about her appearance, but it felt that way to Emma. And that changes the tone of the moment. It can start to feel like he's trying to regain footing by interpreting rather than empathizing. And Emma is right to challenge him on trying to guess things about what she looks like. It's truly hard to know Stephen's intention, whether or not he is gathering information about appearance, but the point is that he is gathering information rather than staying with her story.
I've kind of been taking this process.
Like a shy girl, like hiding. Dude, you know how I feel about adoption. Do you feel like you have like the desire, like I know you like, I don't know if I want kids or not, but like, do you feel like if you did have kids, do you feel like you would like sort of want to like adopt a kid just because like you know how it's like?
In that one sentence, we actually learn a lot. First, he interrupts her and begins interpreting before she even finishes her thought. He is moving quickly to define her and her story instead of staying curious about her experience. Then he places her into a category, the shy girl. That's a subtle but important moment. Instead of responding to her story, he assigns her a label. And when he says she's hiding, that becomes accusatory. It implies intent. It suggests she is deliberately withholding something. That's a big leap, especially in a vulnerable moment. What makes this concerning is that instead of listening, he interprets. Instead of asking, he assumes. Instead of supporting her story, he redirects it into his narrative about who he believes that she is. And at that point, Emma could reasonably begin to wonder, is this actually about me? Or is he projecting? Is he uncomfortable with vulnerability and assuming I'm hiding? Because that's what he might do in this kind of situation.
Yeah, I think if I wanted kids, I'd like to adopt.
There we go. The whole point is like not to hide things from the other side of the wall, right? Like,
there's another dynamic happening here that's also worth paying attention to. When Emma says she would adopt and Stephen responds with, "There we go," it can land as if he is approving of her answer, almost like she's finally said the right thing. That's a subtle shift that creates a hierarchy in the conversation. Instead of two people exploring values together, it can start to feel like one person is evaluating and the other person is being evaluated. And then when he says the whole point is not to hide things from the other side of the wall, that statement is accusatory. It implies that she is hiding something, and it positions him as the one who sees clearly and her as the one who needs to be more transparent. That's where it can start to feel like he is assuming a superior role. Not necessarily intentionally, but shifting the dynamic into one where he's evaluating, like I said, and she's the one having to justify herself, rather than two people relating as equals. And when I see that, I also wonder if this is a defensive posture on his part. Sometimes when one person moves into vulnerability like Emma, the other person, Stephen, can possibly feel discomfort and attempt to take control of the conversation. And when someone is this focused on what the other person might be hiding, it naturally raises another question. What might he be hiding? What is he not revealing about himself?
I wanted to go on this show because I really like the idea of like the physical, like being kind of like removed from it.
do you feel like you've just been like, people have been like just about the physicality of it all?
Yeah, and so
You there?
There is a reason why Emma is hesitating. On some level, she doesn't feel emotionally safe, even if she can't fully name that yet. And that's very common, to sense something feels a little off and yet not be able to name it. Emotional safety isn't always something you can articulate in real time. Sometimes you just feel a subtle tightening in your body, a pause, a second thought, and that's hard to interpret in the moment. She doesn't have the distance to step back and reflect on what's happening. She's inside the interaction, so she's responding in real time. And on top of that, she's being filmed, which adds pressure and self-consciousness. When subtle invalidation happens, it doesn't always register as a clear red flag. In the moment, it can feel kind of small, and it's easy to brush off. But when someone responds in a way that minimizes, redirects, or interprets instead of staying present, that can create confusion. And confusion can create self-doubt. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe I'm not being clear. Maybe I'm reading too much into this. So it's not that Emma is invalidating herself. It's that she is responding to a dynamic that makes it harder for her to trust her own perception. Subtle invalidation doesn't always feel like a red flag. It often feels like confusion. And hesitation can mean that your intuition is sensing something before you can fully understand it.
When I was born, I was actually born with a birthmark covering my whole arm. I had about 10 surgeries before the age of like 7 to remove my birthmarks. And I think this was something that I struggled with like growing up.
Are you getting sad over there?
Yeah.
I feel like you don't want to be asked questions about it right now. I can get you out of this funk, girl.
So Stephen may have a low tolerance for emotional intensity. Some people feel uncomfortable with emotions and vulnerability, so they want to move things along quickly. They want to lighten the mood, and often the way they manage their own discomfort with emotion is by trying to manage the other person's emotions too. So when he says, "Girl, do you want me to get you out of this funk?" it might sound caring, but notice what's missing. There is no acknowledgement of what she just shared, no validation, no reflection, no empathy. He doesn't stay with her story. Instead, he moves to change her emotional state. Rather than meeting her in her vulnerability, he pivots into his own story, which I didn't show you, but he shifts into a light, cute first kiss story as a way to lift the mood. But her story wasn't light. It wasn't playful. It required presence. And when someone is vulnerable, they don't usually need to be pulled out of their feelings. They need someone to sit with them in their feelings, even if it's brief. If someone consistently tries to get you out of your emotions, it can start to feel like your feelings are a problem to be solved rather than an experience to be understood.
I feel like you've been walled off from me. I feel like you were like, go deep. And I'm like, okay. And I've gone deep. First kiss, even like Virginia stories. Like when I like asked you, it's like a guy in high school.
A guy in high school, but it was a guy in high school.
I feel like your first kiss is different than a kiss in college with a random guy.
Yeah.
This is actually hard to watch. First, he accuses her of being walled off, but she's the one who has actually shared something vulnerable. He hasn't. When someone opens up and then is told that they're guarded or hiding, it can feel disorienting. She's the one who took the risk, and now she's being accused as the emotionally closed one. This is a moment where she might consider stepping back, even saying, you know what, let's get back to this another time. That is creating a boundary, a protective space for yourself so that she can process what's happening and how she wants to respond. But here's the challenge for Emma. She might be feeling self-protective, but she's not really sure what's going on for herself. There may be a part of her also that values being the kind of person who can open up. She knows she has the capacity for vulnerability. So when he questions that, it can create pressure to prove otherwise. And because she doesn't have the emotional or physical space to pause and process what's happening, she may feel the need to defend herself instead of taking a step back. And that's understandable. So she keeps going. Yes, Stephen shared a story about his first cute kiss, and he tells himself that he's going deep, but that isn't deep. She shared about her adoption story. She shared about the pain around her physical scars and how that affected her. That's depth. That's personal. That's vulnerable.
I don't think my first kiss was special, and that's my story. No one wanted me in high school. No one wanted me up until college.
Okay.
You think you can latch onto the first person that cares about you, and those boys didn't care about me.
If you notice, Stephen shifts the moment Emma makes it clear that her story is different from his. When she says, "That's my story," she's challenging him, rightly so, and he doesn't seem to like that. His body language changes. His hand gestures suggest agitation. There's a tightening there. It feels less like curiosity and more like his resistance. What's happening isn't just a difference in stories. It's that she's correcting him as she should. She's asserting her reality, and instead of adjusting and making space for that, he appears mildly irritated that his interpretation doesn't land right. Because emotional maturity isn't about being right. It's about being able to tolerate getting it wrong. It's about being able to say, "Oh, I misread that," and then recalibrate. The deeper concern here isn't that they see things differently, it's how Stephen responds when his perspective is challenged.
And I don't think they were worth painting a picture of.
Okay. Sorry, I'm listening. I'm just
I feel like
conversation for another one.
So he cuts her off and says that he's listening, and he reaches for a drink. She can't see that, but I'm sure she feels it. But it tells us something about his state of mind. There's a disconnect between what he's saying and what he's doing. Saying "I'm listening" while being physically disengaging suggests that he feels restlessness, and it also suggests that he is uncomfortable, and he might be trying to regulate himself rather than stay fully present with her. That moment isn't about the drink itself, it's about the disconnect. His words say that he's engaged, his behavior suggests he's already pulling away.
and like the comment about being a late bloomer, like these are comments that like kind of rub me the wrong way, and like just the interrupting. I think it was
Okay. I feel like I didn't interrupt, to be honest. It doesn't have to be put back on me like you did something.
Well, thankfully she cannot see his hand gesture. From what we see, he looks impatient. He wants her to hurry up. While he says that he's also listening, his body language suggests agitation. Meanwhile, Emma is simply communicating that his comment about her being a late bloomer didn't sit well with her. She isn't attacking him. She isn't escalating in her emotions. She is calmly saying, "That didn't land well for me." She is saying, "That's not how I see myself." She is trying to advocate for herself, and that is emotionally healthy communication. When someone slows down to express a boundary or a feeling and the other person responds with impatience, it sends a message. Your emotions are taking too long, and that is not emotional safety.
no.
It can be like, I'm just not seeing about this.
But this is what I am feeling.
Yeah, you can't see how I'm reacting on the other side of the
No.
wall. I was very like, intent, and I was like
Yeah.
really taking it in. And I feel like now it's like, I just feel like you're trying to paint it like I reacted wrong, where I'm like, I feel like I had a great response to all of this.
I find myself wondering what Stephen believes a great response in that moment is. Presence isn't defined by how present you believe you are. It's defined by how your behavior lands with the other person. If someone walks away from a vulnerable moment feeling unheard, confused, or dismissed, then something in that exchange didn't land well, regardless of one's intentions. Emotional presence isn't about claiming that you showed up. It's about responding in a way that helps the other person actually feel understood. When words say "I'm listening," but behavior says "hurry up," it's the body that tells the truth.
I just don't think
You're going to get there?
I'm going to get there. And I just believe that my connections
Are stronger with other people.
are stronger with other people.
And that's like, yeah, that's fine.
It's interesting, isn't it? He says he doesn't interrupt her while continuing to interrupt her. And now, this next part that I'm going to show you is so important. As we watch Emma's reaction after this exchange, I want to share something with you that I often say in my counseling sessions that can completely shift how someone processes a painful experience. So let's watch Emma's reaction.
I open up to him about my story, and like, I'm not victimizing myself, but I know
You didn't do anything wrong. You did nothing wrong. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. You opened up about your story. You did nothing wrong. You did it Emma's way. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry that was your experience.
Emma can finally release the hurt from that conversation with Stephen. Hurt that she likely had been holding in, which could not have been easy for her. She did a beautiful job of standing in her truth and communicating it clearly to him. But what happens next is something many of us do after an interaction like this.
I don't know what to do. I just feel so gaslit. And now I'm like rethinking. I'm like,
That's the moment when she says, and now I'm like rethinking. After an interaction like this, it is so easy to lean into self-doubt and start questioning your own experience. This is the moment when I often say to people I counsel, let's not judge it, let's understand it. And those words can shift everything. Because when you remove self-judgment, you create space for self-reflection. Instead of asking what's wrong with me, you begin asking what just happened. And that shift changes everything about how you process what happened. When you lean into self-understanding rather than self-doubt, you can begin to untangle the interaction with clarity. And when clarity comes, self-doubt often gives way to insight, awareness, and self-compassion. Her friends actually helped her get there. Let's watch.
no. This is not a reflection of you. This is a reflection.
Emma, you didn't do anything wrong.
What I really wanted from Stephen was like that empathy and that emotion and that support. I felt invalidated.
When Emma was encouraged to not lean into self-doubt, it gave her space to think more clearly about what actually happened. So instead of questioning herself, she was able to say, I wanted empathy and support and validation, and instead I felt completely invalidated. And that is an empowering conclusion. Because once you can name what was missing, you are no longer confused, you are informed. And that kind of clarity helps you understand what you truly need and want in a relationship as you move forward. In another video, I'm going to walk you through what a healthy, empathetic response looks like when someone shares their vulnerable story with you. Okay, that is a wrap for today. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.